Good morning, everyone. This is Rajesh Pichaimani, and I'm a solutions architect at Amazon Web Services. In this session, I'm going to introduce the CloudFormation capability called Infrastructure Composer. Using this feature, you will be able to create AWS resources with the drag and drop method, which will then translate to the CloudFormation scripts to deploy the resources. What I'm going to do in this session is going to deploy a basic AWS network architecture and use the infrastructure composer to walk through the examples of that. This is what we are going to do. We are going to create a VPC in the US East 1 region. And within this VPC, we'll be creating the public subnet and the private subnet with the CIDR block mentioned here in the US East 1A availability zone. For resources in the public subnet, they will need IGW, Internet Gateway, to reach the external world. For the resources in the private subnet, we will be using NAT Gateway. This is an introductory session, so I'm going to just create this basic architecture. In the upcoming series, we will be deploying resources built up on top of this to create resources in the various subnets. The QR code mentioned here directs you to the CloudFormation resources, where we will be referring back and forth in the next walkthrough. So let's get this started in the console. I'm in the AWS console. Click CloudFormation. The page just like this. Infrastructure Composer. The very first time that you will see here is the blank sheet here. Here is where we will be creating the structure. I have already created the network components that I just showed. Before going into the final view, I want to walk you through the details. So let's get this started. VPC, search for VPC. Click on select the EC2 VPC, bring it here. And this goes for any kind of resources. We'll start with the basic search and then select one of them, drag and drop. Very first time, we will start clicking the details and say click on the logical ID. I'll say my VPC. And some configuration related to the VPC has to be provided here. And what is that? Will be provided here in the resource reference. If you click on resource reference, it will take you to the CloudFormation user guide. The QR code for this link is provided in the slide deck and also will be provided in the description as well. What this user guide indicates is of how to use the JSON and the YAML files to create a VPC. It starts with the structure of the syntax, which identifies the various properties related to creating the VPC in the JSON format and in the YAML format. And this pattern goes for all the resources as part of the CloudFormation user guide. Next comes the properties section, which will highlight each and every property listed here, what it means, what is a value that needs to be provided, and whether it is required or optional. So that would be available in the properties section. As you see down below, in the alphabetical order, you will see the description of CIDR block, whether it is required, etc., etc. After the properties section, you will see the return values. When we deploy this CloudFormation scripts, we can also extract some information out of it to be referenced in a later part of the script, same script or elsewhere. And those are the information provided here. and down below are the examples. In most of this section, we will be referring to the examples of various resources that we will be creating. Even in the examples section, we will be focusing on the YAML part alone. Okay. So the way how to interpret this example here is we are creating a VPC, EC2 VPC of type. This is the name, logical name, and here are the properties. Why we need this information here is we will copy, come back into the AWS Infrastructure Composer and copy paste. One thing to mention here is this particular section will only need the resource properties as it's mentioned here. Updating this value will change the resource properties. So we do not need anything above this particular line. We already said the resources is part of this one. And we also know that this is a EC2 VPC, so we can remove this one. When you see this one, when I updated the tab, you see some color coding indication that it's indicating an error here. So we might have to adjust tags. I'm not going to use the tags, simplicity's sake. Okay. Here, this is a masked one, but essentially you can give the sided block here. Okay. So with the /16, we can also change this actual information. The DNS support value and the DNS hostname should be a Boolean value. So that's why it is showing a yellow color underlines here. So we can do a click. Quick fix. Change it to Boolean value. At this time, you will see there is no errors indicated as outlined in the bar here. So we can ready to save it. This is the first step in creating this basic resource. When we translate to the template, you are seeing back the CloudFormation as you might have written in the code in the first place. Okay. So instead of writing this code from scratch, we are using a drag and drop method using the infrastructure composer, as you might know. Okay. After creating a VPC, the next one is to create a EC2 subnet. Click on details. I want to make this subnet public subnet. I'm giving a logical name here. For this resource configuration, obviously the properties of the subnet are going to be different from the VPCs. So we go to the resource reference, takes you to the page, CloudFormation user guide, but redirects directly to the subnet location. As before, we are going to go directly to the examples, select the YAML example, and copy paste here. As you might know by now, we don't need this particular section. I'm going to remove the tag for simplicity's sake as well. Okay. Now, we wanted this subnet to be a part of this VPC, correct? So I'm going to update this information by giving this logical reference back to this VPC name. So on the sided block, we can change it or leave it as it is. Availability zone, I'm going to leave it as it is. Save. So this creates a link here, which means that even though this is, I'm naming it as public subnet, but there are other additional components that designate that this is a public subnet versus private subnet, etc. Next comes the internet gateway. For Internet Gateway, there's nothing needed in the Internet Gateway except the tags. Because we are leaving the tags outside of this example, I'm going to leave it as it is. Just remove here and save. However, Internet Gateway is created. If you recollect the process in the console, once the Internet Gateway is created, we will have to attach it back to the VPC. So, attach VPC Gateway attachment, details. I'm going to give a name here, logical ID. Go back here, resource reference. Come back to the examples. Here are some of the examples here in the YAML section. Obviously, we don't need to copy everything, just like in the previous section, but we will just take only what is now needed. This YAML section in the example indicates two types of attachment, Internet Gateway attachment as well as VPN attachment. We don't need the VPN attachment for our example, but we only need a part of it. So for easier sake, we copy paste here. We remove this section, obviously. We also remove this section, which VPC we want to attach this GW2, and also referring back to the gateway ID. So the resource configuration has been changed, saved. I'm going to come here. So this is the VPC with the sided block. When I drop down, it shows this VPC is attached to the Internet Gateway, and it's also listed here. Okay. The template, going back to the template, it also created the necessary CloudFormation scripts in the YAML format. You see the VPC section, the public subnet section, Internet Gateway, and then the attachment, in the same order as we have created this walkthrough example. Okay. Likewise, we can continue to add the examples. However, in the interest of time, I'm going to show you the working example of how it has been created. One other thing is we can also do a validation. To see a quick validation here, it says a template format error, IGW in the resources block. So here, there is no reference back to here. I'm going to change details. The name of the logical gateway is Internet Gateway. However, I've given this different name. Now this connection has happened. This is a reason for validation. It quickly checks the reference points. Okay. Going back to the template, now we see this. If I click Internet Gateway, it goes back and identifies the references. Now, the important point at this point section here is to save the information. Save the template file. The YAML. It has been saved. Now this is the time when we can actually deploy this. I'm going to show you how it can be deployed. For this, I'm going to show you the working scenario. I'm going to open the template file. So this is a situation where I have shown the diagram. It starts with the VPC. I have a public subnet. I have a private subnet. In the public subnet, I have the public route table. And in the route table, I also, after the route table creation, I also have to associate the public subnet to the route table. That's done by this one, public subnet route table association. Likewise, the subnet, private subnet. Whatever we are doing in the console is what we are creating here. So whenever we create a subnet, a route table will be there. We will create a route table and then associate the subnet route table association. Once these two components are enabled, I walked you through the creation of the IGW, Internet Gateway, and then the Internet Gateway attachment. Once it is there, then we will have to associate the route, Internet Gateway route in the public subnet. That's what this means is. And likewise, for the private subnet resources, we will have to create a NAT gateway, attach an elastic IP, and then associate the NAT gateway route in the public subnet. Okay. So when I click here, it comes back with the details. So here is a drop-down where we can check the details. Okay. Let me start with the ones that we just created in the previous example, public subnet, referring back to the VPC, which is the my VPC, and the availability zone we saw. Similar one, private subnet, but then in a different private sided block. Going back to the public route table, it starts with the attaching to the main VPC, and then we will associate back here. So public subnet route table association. In the association, we say which subnet I need to attach the route table. Okay, that is tying back the route table to the subnet. And likewise, going back to the private subnet, I'm creating a link on this route table to the subnet. Now comes the creating the routes. In the IGW route, I'm putting this in the public route table with the sided block as quad 0 and gateway IDS internet gateway. How this example is created is going to the resource reference, type of the route, going back to the examples, YAML example. I'm going to exclude all of them here. All I need is the route table ID, which points to the public route table, the destination sided block, and the gateway, internet gateway. Pay attention to the tabs here. All these elements under the properties, all in the same line, same indentation. So when we copy paste here, it should come back here. Otherwise, it gives you an error. Okay. This creates a connectivity to the external world, creating a route. And the way to create this particular block is EC2 route. Okay. This is the object that creates this route, and this is where the resource properties are. Okay. Now that I have walked through all the information here, a quick preview of the template. Here is where you see all of them. I have also completed the validation. One other best practice is save this file before we start creating the deployment. Okay. Creating a CloudFormation template is clicking here. This content will be uploaded in the bucket. You can use the existing bucket or a different bucket. I'm just going to leave it as it is, confirm and continue with the CloudFormation. From this point, it is familiar information where we'll be creating the CloudFormation stack, just like you would have done in a normal way. Click next. Leave all the options as it is and click submit. It proceeds to the create in progress, and this is something that you might already be familiar. Now we will validate the information that's available, what's getting created. So I'm going to the VPC console, refresh. There's already a default VPC with the 172.31 subnet, so we will leave it as it is. I'm going to filter this one. And here in the resource map, this gives a preview of what's happening behind the scenes. We selected the US East 1A subnet, East 1A availability zone. There are two subnets created, public and a private. There are two route tables attached to these subnets. This is the main route table, so we don't need to worry about this one. There's also a IGW, Internet Gateway, created for the external world. This NAT gateway creation is in progress. That's why you don't see the link here. Going back to the CloudFormation, after the creation has happened, the consistency check is initiated. It takes approximately 2 minutes from my previous experience. So the resource creation completed. Going back, doing a resource map again. This link has been created as well for the private subnet. Okay. Now that whatever we have seen in the slide diagram, we started with the VPC creation in a certain region, two subnets in a particular availability zone, two route tables associated with each of the subnets, and one default route pointing to internet gateway, and another one created, set it up for the NAT gateway. And going back to the CloudFormation creation complete. Just a quick preview on the console, selecting the VPCs. Subnets. We see the two subnets created, one for the 21, 22. Route tables related for this. Internet gateway created and attached. This is the one. And we also have the NAT gateways available and attached. Okay. So this is a way of how to use the Cloud Infrastructure Composer of using a low code, no code option to create the CloudFormation templates and deploy the resources. We can also do a delete back just to clean up. Delete initiated. Soon we will see some of the resources we will be going away. They see this item getting deleted. We saw one of the internet gateway getting removed. There no more. We saw The 22 got deleted. And pretty soon we will also be seeing this particular VPC also getting deleted as well. Private subnet delete. Okay. When we go back to the VPC, this should happen very shortly. NAT gateway elastic IP is deleted. And finally, the entire CloudFormation stack is deleted. Now, if you go back and refresh, we are not going to see the 20 subnet that was created, 20-sided block VPC that was created. Okay. Now, this is a complete walkthrough of an introductory session of Infrastructure Composer. Whenever you start deploying the resources, these are some of the basic elements that you will be doing on an everyday basis. So that's the reason I have started this from scratch. In the upcoming sessions, we will start deploying resources on these subnets and evolve the architecture as we move along. Hope you found this session useful, and thank you for your time. Bye.